All right, good afternoon. As soon as you're done with me, we have our guest, Mary Ellen McCourty, the World Food Program Country Director for South Sudan. She will be briefing you virtually from Juba in South Sudan on the situation in that country. Tomorrow, we will have another guest from the World Food Program, and that will be Sean Hughes, the Regional Emergency Coordinator for Sudan Crisis. He will join us from Nairobi to brief you on the situation in Sudan. I'll start off today with Gaza, and I can tell you that our colleagues in the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs report that hostilities across the Gaza Strip continue to exact a devastating toll on civilians, causing further death, further displacement, and further destruction of critical infrastructure. Thousands of families are on the move yet again, fleeing bombardment, shelling, and repeated displacement orders issued by the Israeli authorities. But as we have warned repeatedly, there is no safe place in Gaza. And as we've repeatedly said, civilians must be protected, whether they stay, whether they leave. Those fleeing the fighting must be allowed to do so safely, and they must be allowed to voluntarily return when the situation allows. OCHA reports that humanitarian operations remain severely constrained. That is due to the expanding military operations as well as ongoing blockade of humanitarian aid and commercial goods, which has lasted now for 5 weeks. There have also been deadly attacks on aid workers and humanitarian facilities. Meanwhile, just since yesterday, the Israeli authorities have denied 8 of our 14 attempts by aid workers to coordinate access to people needing urgent assistance. Overall, since the intensification of the hostilities on March 18th, the authorities denied 68% of our 170 attempts to coordinate attempts to reach people across the Gaza Strip and to assist them with humanitarian assistance. They also continue to reject all attempts to pick up supplies that were brought in to Gaza and dropped off at the crossing prior to the decision to shut those crossings on March 2nd. OCHA underscores that these denials prevent us from carrying out critical and life-saving mission. Despite the increasingly challenging conditions, our partners report today that they've resumed services in northern Gaza, focusing on urgent case management, psychological first aid, and psychosocial support for traumatized communities. UNRWA's protection monitoring teams have identified severe protection risks in shelters hosting displaced people in northern Gaza, including extreme overcrowding and acute shortages of food, of water, and hygiene supplies. Physical hazards such as rubble, debris, and broken glass were observed in 75% of the shelters that were surveyed, posing further risk to displaced families, especially for children and older people. Just a note from our colleague Philippe Lazzarini, who, as you know, is the head of UNRWA. He said that yesterday Israeli officials from the Jerusalem municipality, accompanied by security forces, forcibly entered 6 UNRWA schools in East Jerusalem. They gave closure orders for the schools effective for in 30 days. Mr. Lazzarini said that some 800 boys and girls are directly impacted by these closure orders and are likely to miss finishing their school year. Noting that UNRWA schools are protected by the privileges and immunities of the United Nations, these illegal closures order come in the wake of the Knesset legislation seeking to curtail UNRWA's operations. Mr. Lazzarini said UNRWA is committed to stay and deliver in education and other basic services for Palestine refugees in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and that is in accordance with the General Assembly resolution founding UNRWA. Moving to Sudan, and update you on the continuing dire humanitarian situation there. Our colleagues on the ground warn that insecurity continues to push thousands of people across the Darfur region out of their homes as humanitarian conditions rapidly deteriorate even further. In the past week alone, more than 4,000 human beings have become newly displaced in North Darfur State, and that's due to the escalating violence in El Fasher, which includes Zamzam displacement camp just south of the city and other areas. As you well know, and we said repeatedly, famine conditions have been confirmed in Zamzam. Families fleeing, including many women and children, need urgent shelter, they need food, they need water, they need medical supplies, but severe funding gaps and logistical challenges are hampering the ability of aid organizations to respond. One partner at Zamzam camp told our colleagues that rising costs and fuel shortages have forced the suspension of water trucking for newly displaced people there. Our humanitarian colleagues say that since April 23rd, more than 400,000 men, women, and children have been displaced within or from El Fasher locality when these latest rounds of hostilities began. Across the country, hostilities continue to put civilians at risk. In Khartoum state, intensified fighting disrupted a period of calm in the western neighborhoods of Omdurman. There are also reports of newly displaced civilians who urgently need protection and humanitarian assistance. And in northern Sudan, a drone attack earlier this week forced the suspension of operations at the Merowe Dam, triggering widespread power outages across several states. The strikes reportedly caused civilian casualties and damaged critical infrastructure, underscoring the growing impact of these conflict on essential services. We call yet again for an immediate cessation of hostilities and unhindered humanitarian access across Sudan. We also urge donors to scale up funding to keep life-saving services running and to help agencies reach people in need in areas hit by violence and acute hunger. And moving to South Sudan, for which you'll hear a bit about more in a short while. Nick Haysom, the head of the peacekeeping mission in that country, is continuing his intensive diplomatic efforts to de-escalate tensions between rival parties. This week, he met with Vice President Taban Dengai and emphasized that once again the needs for the parties to reinvigorate their commitment to the 2018 peace deal and its structures, as well as to use dialogue rather than engage in conflict to reduce the current tensions. Meanwhile, on the ground, our peacekeepers tell us that security conditions in Upper Nile State are fragile due to the ongoing clashes, particularly in Oolong County. The peacekeeping mission, as part of its mandate to provide protection to civilians, which is even more important now as tensions continue to rise, has had to intensify its presence around and within the camps for displaced communities, patrolling by day and by night to provide additional security for the people. On the humanitarian front, you'll hear from WFP. Turning to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tells us that persistent violence in the eastern provinces continues to drive people from their homes and fuel disease outbreaks. In North Kivu province, new clashes yesterday between armed groups in the Muhanda area near the town of Masisi displaced more than 45,000 people. That's what local humanitarian partners are telling us. This surge in violence follows a 3-day period of relative calm. OCHA is closely monitoring the situation and assessing the impacts on humanitarian operations in the area. In separate incident in Walikale territory, local sources tell us that on April 5th, our men raided 2 critical health facilities in Kibua and Kichanga Health Center, and they looted the stocks of medicines and other medical supplies. This attack, as you can imagine, further cripples access to health care for more than 120,000 human beings in the area of Kibua. Meanwhile, OCHA also warns that cholera continues to spread in the east, with outbreaks now declared in 4 provinces, and those are North Kivu, South Kivu, Tanganyika, and Maniema provinces. We're also concerned about the situation in South Kivu's Fizi territory, with at least 8 confirmed cholera cases reported in the Mulongwe refugee camp near the city of Uvira. The camp, which is hosting nearly 15,000 refugees from Burundi, faces acute risks due to poor hygiene, limited access to clean water, and inadequate sanitation. Response efforts are hindered by strained healthcare capacity and logistical challenges. And in South Kivu's Kalehe territory, particularly in the Minova area, cholera cases surged to 77 between March 31st and April 6th, just a few days ago. That's nearly 5 times the epidemic threshold that should trigger an emergency response. Humanitarian organizations are working alongside local authorities to contain the spread, but the situation remains critical and the supplies are limited. Turning to Myanmar, we and our partners are continuing to scale up efforts to work to reach people impacted almost 2 weeks after the devastating earthquakes. Yesterday, a UN mission visited Sagaing region to assess the situation and deliver much-needed aid. A UN disaster and coordination team also managed to reach the affected locations to conduct assessments. Over the past 2 days, 13 trucks of humanitarian supplies were delivered to affected areas in Sagaing, and those included tents, household kits, hygiene, dignity kits, and child learning materials. 3 of those trucks today traveled to remote villages in Sagaing province, where distribution is expected to take place tomorrow. We and our partners are also in the process of establishing a logistics hub in that town and setting up temporary warehouses. Moving to this hemisphere, I can tell you that the Secretary General is deeply saddened by the incident in Santo Domingo that took place early yesterday, in which close to 100 people died, including a retired staff member from the United Nations. Many others were injured following the collapse of the roof. In the nightclub, the Secretary General expresses his heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims and the people and the government of Dominican Republic. The United Nations is supporting the authorities' response and is ready to provide further assistance. And from Haiti, our colleagues from the Office of Coordination our colleagues from the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs continue to sound the alarm about rising violence and worsening humanitarian conditions, especially in 2 departments, that's Center and West, and that is where the capital, Port-au-Prince, is located. According to IOM, armed attacks in the past few weeks in the Center Department's communes of Sodo and Mirabelais have now displaced more than 30,000 people. The vast majority of them have remained in the department. Our humanitarian colleagues, along with partners, are providing assistance, which includes food, hygiene, safe water, and psychosocial support. We also have an update on the cholera situation in Haiti. In the first 3 months of the year, as of March 29th, close to 1,300 suspected cases have been reported, including 9 confirmed cases and 19 deaths. This is what the World Health Organization is telling us. The overall case fatality rate stands at 1.65%, above the emergency threshold of 1%. Significant increases in suspected cases have been reported in Cité Soleil in Port-au-Prince and in the town of Arcaille, which includes in displacement sites where living conditions, as you can imagine, are fairly precarious. The Cholera Response Task Force, working under the leadership of the Haitian Ministry of Public Health and supported by humanitarian and international organizations, continues its active activities and monitoring. We and our partners are continuing to provide assistance, including surveillance, lab support, case management, risk communication, vaccination, water, sanitation services, and infection prevention and control. However, OCHA says the response effort remains severely limited due to insecurity and lack of access and underfunding. Just to note for the record that yesterday afternoon, the Security Council held a briefing on UNMIC. Briefing council members was Caroline Ziadeh, the special representative and head of the mission there. She stressed that trust building remains a fundamental to fostering a stable and prosperous future for all communities in Kosovo, noting that despite the continuing challenges, which reflects a lack of confidence in institutions and concern over intercommunal relations, the UN mission stands steadfast in its commitment to bridging those divides. She said that during a recent visit to northern Kosovo, she once again expressed her concern regarding the closures of Serbia-run institutions and the consequences they are having on economic and social rights, especially for people in vulnerable situations. And I want to flag that our friend Jorge Moreira da Silva, the executive director of UNOPS, will begin on Sunday a 5-day visit to the African continent. That will include Sudan, Somalia, and Ethiopia. Mr. Moreira da Silva is scheduled to meet with national authorities in those countries and development partners. He will discuss practical solutions that UNOPS can offer to partners to maximize the impact of their humanitarian and development and peace operations, all in support of the Sustainable Development Goals. The visit also aims to get a better understanding of the needs on the ground, how UNOPS can scale up operations there. 4 member states have paid up, all right? No links, but we're going to have four little quizzes. This landlocked country has a bicephalic system for heads of state.
What does that mean?
Two heads. It has two heads of state. They each serve for 6 months period. Landlocked country. Sorry? Nope. It is a landlocked country. They are called captain's regents. San Marino. All right. Well, everyone laughs until it's San Marino. Exactly. This next country in Africa, the name of the capital of this country is related to the name of a country in Asia that recently paid its dues.
Come on.
Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. We talked about Brunei, Dar es Salaam a few weeks ago. All right. This next country is not France because it has won 5 FIFA World Cups, more than any other country.
Brazil.
Yes, Brazil. Very good. And finally, this country is the world's second largest landlocked country.
Uzbekistan.
Both of you in the right, in the better region than, no, not Tajikistan, Mongolia. All right, so we are now at 89, and we thank our friends in San Marino, Tanzania, Brazil, and Mongolia for their full payments to the regular budget. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Steph. I think this might be a better question for our guests, but I'm going to try you
Okay.
first. The AP reported that the World Food Program the U.S. has reversed cuts to the World Food Program for 6 countries, including Jordan, Somalia, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq, but has maintained those cuts for Afghanistan and Yemen. The status of funding for 6 other countries remains unknown. I'm wondering if you can share any details.
I would encourage you to reach out directly to WFP, but I can tell you that we share WFP's concern about the impact of these cuts on some of the world's most vulnerable people, many of whom live on the threshold of survival. Pam.
Thanks, Steph. You mentioned the crisis in Haiti, but this week there was a very ugly attack that had thousands wounded, deaths, rapes, and the report that the UN produced said that the personnel originally envisioned of 2,500 is only 40%.
Sorry, say again. It was
personnel
a BNU
report that said that the Kenyan police program is operating with only 40% of the 2,500 personnel originally envisioned. So it's 40% of the fulfillment, so to speak. What can be done and what is being done to strengthen that mission?
Well, I mean, we continue to encourage member states to support the multinational support force with financing, with equipment. I think those countries, notably Kenya, but many others who have sent police officers, are doing whatever they can to implement their mandate, but they don't have all the tools and the financial resources they need. And we are urging and pushing for more support. Deji.
Hi, Steph. I want to show you 2 video clips, and then since we talk in length about anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, hatred, and then I want to show you these 2 clips. The first one from Vice President of this country.
To make it a little bit more crystal clear, we borrow money from Chinese
I've seen
peasants
that
to
clip.
buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture.
The second one from the President of this country.
I'm telling you, these countries are calling us.
Yeah, I don't need to. I've seen that. I've seen that video.
They
You don't need to play it.
I just want to.
Please.
All right, stop the video. Okay, so if the Secretary General have a chance to talk to those to people, what message does he want to tell them about all those rhetorics?
Look, I think the Secretary General will speak for himself. I think the kind of language that the Secretary General uses is always respectful, is always correct, and he will continue to do so.
Should political figures talking like
I
this?
think we have seen in many instances political figures use inflammatory rhetoric.
And one last question, I'm sorry. Many people believe that Trump administration is bullying other countries by putting tariffs, bullying penguins, bullying the United Nations by exiting agencies, stop fundings. Is the globalization coming to an end now?
Look, I think I will leave that deep question to analysts. I think the Secretary General was very clear yesterday when Edie asked him about trade and about tariffs, and that is, in a trade war, nobody wins and everybody loses. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, dear Stéphane. Does the Secretary General have any comments regarding the Iranian and American meetings and discussions coming up on Saturday in Oman? Thank you.
Yeah, we very much hope that there will be a positive outcome to the talks that are going to happen in Oman. It is very important that the United States and that Iran engage in diplomacy to resolve all of the outstanding issues. Edie and then Yvonne, then Sinan.
Thank you, Steph. The WFP has not been very forthcoming with information, and perhaps you will be more successful than some of us have been in trying to pry an official list of who's getting aid and who is not. And I think we would all appreciate your efforts on that.
My mission, not that I have a chance to refuse that mission, but I hear what you're saying. You have another question,
Another
or
question
just an assignment?
on a completely different topic. On Darfur, you talked about Zamzam. Is El Fasher still under the same siege that it has been for months?
That's my understanding. Yeah. Yvonne, Sinan, then we'll go to Dawn on the screen.
Thanks, Steph. About the UNRWA schools that you just told us about, do you know whether there were children attending class at the time that the Israeli security forces raided those
It's a
schools?
very valid question. I don't have that level of detail, but I can find out quickly enough.
And then, so according to the readout there from Philippe Lazzarini, they're planning to stay for now,
Yeah.
despite these closure orders. But do you anticipate, or are you concerned that at some point after those 30 days, those schools will be bulldozed by the Israeli security forces?
I don't know what will physically happen to the buildings, but I can tell you we're very concerned about what will happen to the students and whether or not they will continue to have access to education.
So are you moving the students out, or
Well,
are you
right
just
now the
waiting
school
for the
will
worst to
continue.
happen?
Well, now the school will continue. UNRWA, I know, is in touch with the Israeli authorities, and we'll see what happens. Sinan.
Thank you, sir. I have a question on Syria again. The Security Council is meeting tomorrow to discuss Syria on the request of Algeria and Somalia. Does Secretary General have any message to the Council? Also, if he has any message for the parties in Syria?
Well, I mean, I think the message to the parties was the one most recently expressed by Geir Pedersen for the unity of Syria, for the regional powers to support Syria, for an easing of the sanctions regime, and for the Syrian leaders to ensure that the institutions that they are building, and even the interim institutions they are building, are fully representative of the diversity of ethnicity and religion that we see in the country. And I will let you know who's briefing tomorrow.
Quick follow-up: Mr. Geir Pedersen attending to
I don't. That's what I need to. That's what I need to find out. I'm going to go to Dawn on the screen. Then I'll come back to you, Stefano.
Steph, just two quick ones on the Secretary General. Is it still accurate to say that he hasn't spoken with Donald Trump, President Trump, and that there's nothing currently in the works for a meeting between the two of them?
That he has not spoken to the president since his reelection. Once something happens, I will let you know. Stefano.
Thank you, Stéphane. The deputy of the Russian mission, Ambassador Polyansky, he said on the social that the European Union and the UK are putting obstacles here at the UN on Ukraine. Means that Russia is trying to reach an agreement, but this is impossible because European Union and the UK are basically boycotting and trying to do anything possible. Now, the question is, what is the role of the Secretary General, the UN in general, to this discussion going on between United States, Russia, Ukraine, to try to find a way to find a solution? I mean, does the UN has any role apart of the fact that he's hosting, in the building, the diplomats?
I mean, as we've told you, we have remained in touch with all the relevant parties around the discussions that we've seen recently for potential movement, especially towards the Black Sea, feeding information that we've accumulated over time, especially from Rebecca Greenspan's team. We continue to be extremely active in Ukraine as we update you a few times a week in our humanitarian work, and our position remains ready to support any initiative towards a durable ceasefire that would contribute to lasting, sustainable peace in Ukraine, which upholds its sovereignty, its independence, territorial integrity, in accordance with the Charter and all relevant United Nations resolution from the General Assembly or the Security Council.